A hot topic that I get asked about a lot in the past year, to the point where I even explicitly put it into my services page on my website, is founder-led storytelling, founder-led marketing, founder-led branding. How much should the founder be front and center, and in what capacity? What channels should they use? Do they need to be out there posting their breakfast on Instagram? Spoiler alert, no. Can they be totally behind the scenes? Yes. It really depends on the company and the brand, and most importantly, the founder themselves. So in this video, I want to explore how I approach this with my clients who are mostly early stage startups and founders. You can insert leader or like CEO anywhere where I say founder here, the person on top, if it's not the founder themselves. So let's get into it. I think there are a few factors why this has been coming up a lot lately. One is this rise in personal branding. Everyone's talking about personal branding. Even people who work in corporate roles are thinking more about personal branding these days. There's also this rise in people first on certain social media channels. For example, LinkedIn surfaces posts from people over posts from pages. We're just more savvy customers these days and put less faith in marketing. And so we want to hear from people. There's been the whole rise of the creator class as well. We're getting much more recommendations from influencers or people we trust. There's also this interesting rise in solopreneurs or independents or people working for themselves. And so there's kind of a blend of the personal branding with the business branding when you're in those service-oriented one-person businesses. But then on the other side, you have some backlash that's affecting how people are approaching founder-led branding as well. So for example, there's a backlash to social media. People don't want to be on social media sharing their entire lives all the time. I mean, a lot of people still do, but there's a lot of people taking a break or they've been getting nasty comments, so they don't want to be on there and they don't want to put themselves out there as much, rightfully so. People don't want to spend like all this screen time. One of the biggest trends I also see is specifically with women founders. There was this rise in women founders being front and center of a lot of startups. You can think about The Wing, Away, Outdoor Voices, all of these that around pre-pandemic, really, a lot of the women founders were front and center. It really helped the brand. They were the voice of the brand. Then afterwards, there was the backlash to all of these women founders and CEOs, a lot of press about them. They really had like a nasty backlash to them. So you also see a lot of founders being like, well, I don't want to be the face of the brand. I don't want to put myself out there as much because there could be that backlash. Maybe I could hurt the brand, or that I get more attention on myself and the attention to be on the product and the company. All of these trends are kind of a swirl of how people are thinking about founder-led branding or founder-led storytelling now in 2024. How I view it is that there are three main levels of visibility that you can go for. None of them are necessarily right. The highest level of visibility I would call founder-led branding or storytelling or marketing in the truest sense. So this is where I would place the sort of like cult of personality founders. So you can think about the Steve Jobs, the Mark Zuckerberg, the Elon Musk, the sort of like big tech founders. These are people who are really, really, really dynamic. They love being out there. They love putting their opinion out there. They're like a real natural, sometimes maybe a little too much. Maybe they need to dial it back a bit. Like I would put an Adam Newman in there where like they naturally are like super charismatic and outgoing and they want to be the face of the brand. And they are going to go out there and like sell it. Like I said, sometimes goes the wrong way. Often goes the wrong way. But that's very, very, very founder-led. I would also place in that category a lot of the brands and products that are now being started by creators or by celebrities, because they are kind of famous first, have a big audience, and then create a product. So I would also put that in that category, where when you think of it, you think of the founder just as much as the product. The next tier in the middle, I would call founder involved branding. Not the sexiest name, but founder involved branding or founder involved marketing. This is where I put the bulk of most companies, especially early stage startups. You can think about this as like the founder, the CEO that goes out there and does media, does conferences, is posting on certain channels, but it's not like you necessarily think of them immediately when you think of the product or brand. I would say the product or brand is probably in front and the founder is there to support in sales and marketing and getting the story out. The third tier I would call silent founders. This is when the founder doesn't really have any involvement publicly or very, very, very minimal. Like you go to the website, they're not really mentioned. You go to the about, it's not like blah, blah, started this company because of this problem. They're not really there. It's more front and center product and brand. This could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe there's not like a really clear fit between the brand and company and the founder and why they started it, and so it would be kind of like forcing it. Maybe they are a little bit controversial, or they have something in their background that they just don't want to be out in front. Doesn't need to be a bad thing. Maybe they are just like extremely shy and they're just like, I know that I'm not the best salesperson for this company and I don't want to be there. It could be a variety of things. You can also see this sort of like silent founder situation once you get to a certain point of the business where it doesn't make as much sense because the brand is so strong in other ways that you don't really need to have someone out in front that much. Those are the 3 levels that I would say most companies fall under, broad strokes. I work with a lot of startups, early stage startups, a lot of founders directly, and so this topic comes up a lot. It also comes up a lot within the independent solopreneur community that I'm a part of as well, of how much should I be front and center? Should I be doing more? How much is the founder story? How much is the brand story? There's a few ways I approach this, or pointers that I give to my clients. The first, which I think is the most important, is do what you are comfortable with. Leave room for stretching, right? Like growing a skill, stretching into something. Not all of us are born public speakers. When I started making videos, I didn't make videos before and it was like super uncomfortable. So do what the level that you think you're comfortable with. If a founder is like, I'm pretty comfortable talking to people, being in front, using my name, but I get like a little bit stuck in these areas, that's where you can get support and marketing and practice. And I would put into that bucket of founder involved marketing. I've also encountered founders and clients who are like, you know what, I really don't want to be out in front at all. I don't really use social media. I'm not a natural talker. Like they're just really not comfortable in that role. They're more comfortable in other ways as the founder and CEO of this company. Then it's more they fall under the silent founder. And there are always ways that people can do stuff behind the scenes to help with sales and marketing. Maybe they're leading more like one-on-one partnership calls and things like that are much more behind the scenes and not in front of branding and marketing. If they decide that they're going to be founder-led or founder-involved marketing, then I say pick the channel or channels that you feel most comfortable with, that you have the best relationship with, that is kind of a natural fit for your skills. So if someone's a great talker, really natural talker, I would say gravitate at the beginning at least towards podcast, video, conference talks, ways that you can use that skill. Something that's really interesting lately, which I'm going to talk about in a bit when I share some examples, is you're seeing more founders who are really good at writing gravitate towards like longer form newsletters or Substacks. If you really like LinkedIn, you hang out on LinkedIn a lot, do LinkedIn. If you really enjoy Instagram and you like more of the lifestyle component, do Instagram. I also think that you should think about like, oh, Instagram just makes me feel icky. I don't like going on there, or like the LinkedIn influencing is really getting to me. I get really annoyed with it. Then I say, don't focus on that channel. Yeah, maybe it would be the best channel, but you are not going to be able to keep up with it. You're not going to be able to keep up with posting on there. It's not going to be sustainable. You may force yourself into it for a month and then it's going to drop off. And this is a long run. So I think you should pick the thing that you feel most comfortable with. I recently was chatting with a friend, Evelyn Cools, for her podcast, and we were talking about other channels that are non-obvious. So books, founders write books, CEOs write books. It's a lot more of a long game, but that's a really interesting channel if you are a really great writer and you love writing. As I mentioned earlier, conferences, it doesn't have to be like a social media channel. It doesn't have to be where you're like putting yourself out there in front of the entire internet. It could be conferences. It could be writing guest articles for publications. If you're like, I don't want to keep up like my own channels that much, but you're going to get in front of people by writing as a contributing writer for those publications. So there are a lot more options than just LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. My other recommendation is to go personal, but not necessarily in like the way that you might be thinking. You don't have to put your kids out there. You don't have to be sharing all the struggles day in, day out and be crying on camera or something. I more mean you are the face of this company in some way. If you're choosing to go the founder involved or founder led, use that to your advantage and show more of the behind the scenes, the why behind the decisions. We'll look at some good examples of this in a little bit of some people who are doing that in a way where I think they probably still have separation from putting their entire personal life online with their business, but they are showing a more human side to the business and injecting that trust and the why in a really useful way. Similarly, I recommend determining your philosophies or point of view or perspective. I do these with the brands that I work on, but I also recommend it for your personal side. I've done it for my own business. What are your big opinions or beliefs about your industry? And these can be very, very closely related to the brand ones, or maybe you take the brand ones and you use those on your own, but maybe you mix in a few about building a company or your approach to work-life balance or how you're making the company. So it could be a mix of the brand philosophies, it should be easier to find an affordable mattress. That's a classic one, right, from these startups. And you mix that with, we should cut out the middleman. And then another philosophy could be we lead with salary transparency and everyone has the same title at the company or something. I'm just making something up. But have 3 to 5 of these and they can give you consistency and they can also give you material to talk about. There are a few founders who I look to who I think are doing some of the most interesting founder-led or founder-involved branding right now. One is Sari Azout at Sublime. This is a new app that until recently has been in beta. I believe it's now launched, but it's still very much in early stage growth. She was running a newsletter on Substack that was sharing a lot of behind the scenes of building the company. At this point, I think she trades it off with someone else on her team, the head of community, Alex. But she was the first founder I saw using Substack to really share the behind the scenes of building a company, trying to do it differently. I feel like a lot of people have gotten into Sublime through her Substack and seeing the values behind it, what they're thinking about. Before the product is ready, she's already getting people to resonate with the product and the mission and the brand through this longer form newsletter. I think she's been doing an amazing job. And also sharing some of the challenges, right? Not, oh man, we can't get 100 people to sign up, which may be a weakness that founders don't want to show. Not that that's her problem, but she's talked about what it's like to have little kids and be trying to run a company and start a company sustainably. Another one that I covered in a video with my friend Sophie Everhart is Big Night. This is a small 2-store company in New York that sells entertaining and dinner party product. And it's started by Katherine, Lewin. And I thought it was really cool when Sophie and I were looking at the brand, and what makes it such a great brand is that you see her on their Instagram, but it's not all the time. And it'll be things like Katherine's go-to dinner party essentials and this sort of curation element where she'll pop up every so often on Instagram. I really liked how they did that because it was a great way to show how you can inject some personality of the founder without it being here's my breakfast that I ate this morning. Although if you want to do that, that's fine too. And it's a way that I think a marketing team can help as well by being hey, if you're a founder of a music company, share what are the 5 artists you're listening to now. They can give it to you really easily and the marketing team can help with it. So the founder's really involved, but it's not they need to be super, super hands-on when they probably have other pressing priorities. And they're using her on their channels. It's not just her being out there. Another one I came across on Substack is Mina Park, who has 2 restaurants in Los Angeles. I believe one is called Baroo. She has this great Substack where she shared a lot of longer form thoughts about various aspects of opening their new restaurant, Baroo, in LA. It's really cool, the approach to their team, how they designed the restaurant, doing things on a certain budget, what it's like to have guests come in for celebrations. Opening a restaurant, we've all seen the bear and everything else. It's a lot of hard work. You get to see her very gentle approach to things in a very nice way. I don't know if it feels gentle because of her writing style, but you get to see this very conscientious peek behind the scenes of what it goes into creating a restaurant, which I think a lot of people are very curious about. They also have kids, and so she's talked about that, what that dynamic is like throughout the week and what that schedule is like throughout the week and how they balance all of that. And I think it's such an interesting approach to marketing a restaurant because I'm sure they have an Instagram with the food pics and everything, but we're so used to just seeing that, just an Instagram with food photos and great press from restaurant critics, TikTok, all of that. I'm so intrigued by this idea of behind the scenes content from industries we don't often get to see. I feel like tech founders have been out there doing build in public for a long time, but you don't get to see it as much from these other industries. Another one that I am really addicted to is this couple that go by Innvestors on Instagram. Their names are Brett and Casey McManus, and they now have 312,000 followers, which is wild. They bought this motel in Vermont and they've been renovating it the past few months, and they just Well, I think they've been keeping it open, but they just launched the new brand. It's called Operate in Killington, I think. I think it's really cool because people are so crazy about home renovation content on Instagram Reels, TikTok, and they've basically been doing that, but with the motel and showing all of the renovations, the design decisions, why they chose the brand, how it's been going. They've had videos that are like, our family is here visiting and helping us with renovations. I think they even went into some of the financing struggles and paths that they looked at when they were trying to buy motels. And I think it's been, 312,000 followers for this like little motel in Vermont. I think it's genius. I'm sure it took a lot of time of recording and editing because video is like that. But again, it's all in this theme of showing the behind the scenes of stuff that people are really, really fascinated by. I think this is especially true with brick and mortar businesses. Like if you have like a car wash business, what is a way that you can show the behind the scenes of that and put some more face to face? It doesn't have to be this big mission driven why, but I'm sure it's really fascinating to have a car wash business to a lot of people that have never done that. I also asked around to a work community I'm in, OGC, about who they've been keeping an eye on. Rachel Wynn shouted out Raphael Allstadt of tldv. I just took a look on LinkedIn, and they are basically like an AI meeting assistant, and their team is posting all these videos. It's at least on LinkedIn. I don't know if it's also on Instagram and TikTok. I would assume so. They're kind of like funny videos, short form videos about product and tech and being in a startup. And I think that it's very clever because these SaaS companies are not the most interesting when you have to go market them, It's like you can talk about the features all day. And so by putting the team out there, that's another sort of offshoot of founder-led branding and marketing is like the team-led. I would say Duolingo falls under that, where you're really showing off the full team and you're showing like the office culture and the company culture. That can be really useful also to make the company look like a great place to work if you're doing a lot of hiring. I think it makes something that's kind of boring a lot more relatable to people. They're going more for that like entertainment side of, if you think about that content exists to educate, entertain, convince, and inspire, they're going more for the entertainment and getting people in to be like, what is this company? Which I think is smart. It's funny, on their LinkedIn, their header says, make our LinkedIn famous, our CEO. So they're definitely playing up the humor aspect. Erin Winkler McHugh shouted out this founder, Harry Glaser. She said she worked with him in the past, but he is building a new company, a second company on his website, which he repurposes across LinkedIn and other channels, is a newsletter that's kind of blogish. It kind of feels like Substack-ish, like longer form newsletter. And it says perspectives from a second time founder. I think it's a great angle because if you're a second time founder, you've been through it. Is the experience different? You already have all these like base level lessons. It's a lot of sort of like build in public, his thoughts on building a company, about headcount, about raising money, building and running your executive team. Ashley Olafson, she recommended Lab's Ali Kriegsman. She's very active on LinkedIn. She has a Substack as well. It looks like she's maybe Gen Z or like in her 20s. Her Substack is definitely, it feels like more of that youthful energy, but like that approach to work. So it's talking about burnout. It uses a lot of slang, talking about kind of like hot button topics at work, but from her perspective of being one of the founders and the CEO of this company, Lab. It's interesting because you can see how her voice and approach is very different to the other Substacks that I've seen. It shows how even if you choose a similar channel to someone else, you can do it in a way that feels entirely unique to you, which it should be because you're a different person. To sum it up, when you're thinking about founder-led branding and storytelling and how much it should fit into your business, you should think about what level of visibility you want within those 3 buckets. You should think about what channel feels most natural to you or the one that you're most interested in the longer term if you are going to be out there in front. Try to pick an angle or behind the scenes that feels like the right level of personal that you're comfortable with, but that also brings people in more than just landing page and more than just like brands marketing. How can you have more of an emotional or personal hook with them? If you know of any other interesting examples, I would love to see them. I like to keep an eye on this stuff, and that's it.